So it's now the end of October, and you know what, the plot doesn't actually feel that different to how it did in September. The leaves are still on all the trees. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like that's really late this year. You know, so many of the trees around here are still fully green and only just starting to turn, as we're almost going to go into November. But otherwise, you know, there's not too much new to see on the plot. So I'm just going to keep it really trim today because there's another video I want to shoot, which is me harvesting my squash and testing out my new wireless mic. So we are going to do a double video shoot today, which means this one's going to be a bit trim. And as I said, I don't want to bore you with, you know, seeing the entire plot when not much has actually changed, but I have been doing a lot of planning and tidying up. You know, going into the winter months, I've got some really good ideas now of what I want to be doing here, getting more organised for next year. My bulbs have been ordered, but on the subject of bulbs, particularly spring bulbs, you know, there's no rush to plant them. And in fact, the weather's still really quite warm. We've had quite a warm, mild October, and especially for tulips, you want to wait until it starts to get really cold. I wait till November because that's when they're safe from the disease tulip fire. And so yeah, I've got loads of bulbs to plant next month, but this month has all been about, I guess, using and preserving all of my harvest, which is why I haven't been here as much, because with that time that I do have, I've been in the kitchen. And you may have seen the chutney video as well. So today it might be a bit short, and we're just going to have a little look at what's going on the plot, and I'll talk you over some of my plans for next month. Down on the pathway before my plot, even the trees down here, they're still in full leaf, even the sycamore right up there, and the hawthorn above my gate. So autumn's here, but it's a little bit slower than last year, I think. And look at that glorious sky today. It's been a really nice afternoon. And down here we've got the sedum, still in full bloom, gorgeous pink colour. Actually matches my top a little bit today. Sort of deep burgundy colour now. And down towards the plot. Well, I tidied up the pond area a little bit. You can see a bit better into it. But it does need a little bit of a tidy before winter, by which I mean just pulling out any dead leaves. I won't be disturbing it too much. All starting to turn brown and a bit crispy. We've had quite a few really windy days this month, and the cosmos, well, they blew over. Some of them are quite horizontal, and they're starting to go over a bit now. You know, all the seed heads are there, and they're just starting to finish. But I probably won't really cut these down till I really have to, because they make great little places for the insects to sort of hide over the winter months. And also the birds might also enjoy eating the seed. So as we go into the really colder months, you know, you've got to think about the garden and the wildlife as well. You know, try not to be too tidy and try and leave a bit of that brash and a bit of the brown, because the bugs love it. Look at that for a blueberry. Such a great ornamental shrub as well as an edible. These strawberry cages are swamped again with weeds, and it's been a bit of a battle this year to take on the bindweed, so it's going to be a nice big project to get this all tidied up one day, and also sort out the runners, because strawberries really multiply and reproduce like crazy, and this time of the year is good for separating those runners, getting them either potted up or planted in a different location or given away to friends and family, because sometimes you can just have far too many. So look out for those runners. And yeah, I want to get this tidied up before winter this time. And just next to them we've got my sweet corn plants, and I was here quite late one afternoon, one evening, and of course it's starting to get really dark quite early now at about 5, 6-ish. It's really when it starts to drop quite quickly. And you know, sweet corn plants, if you grow them, the leaves when they dry up, like, oh gosh, almost stabbed myself. They dry out and they go all rustly, and in the breeze they really make this really loud rustling sound, and I don't know what it is, but it just puts me on edge, and it always makes me feel like there's something on the plot with me. I don't know if anybody else gets that feeling. I'm sure some people quite like that sound, but it was creeping me out too much, especially as it was getting darker and the owls were starting to call. So I actually just stripped off all of the leaves one day to leave these bare, bright red sticks. And if you were following me on Instagram, I think most of you found them a bit more creepy without the leaves, because somebody said they looked like bloody bones. So I thought, you know what, Halloween's just around the corner, so why not leave my creepy sweet corn canes as a bit of a spooky addition to my plot. So I have, and I'm quite surprised actually by just how red the canes are when she took away some of those leaves. And these are going to be great, cut back, dried, and perhaps used as supports for next year. So that's my plan. I'll cut them back after Halloween. The autumn fruiting raspberries, they're still fruiting. Some of them have flopped over a little bit because they don't usually need that much support, but I think with the winds we've had, hello, that's a nice one. Yeah, with the winds we've had, they've just had a bit of a battering. The apple tree's still got all of its leaves, and there's just a couple of apples left. I've harvested most of them, but the ones that I can't reach are still up there at the moment. The wildlife corner, well, I haven't done anything to it. It's still pretty wild, and you know what, the wildlife are absolutely loving it. It's doing its purpose here. You know, it's really in spring and early summer where it puts on all of its flowery show. I will give it a bit of a tidy, but I just don't want to go too overboard, because this is the time of year where we have hedgehogs hibernating, and it's just great to leave a little patch for the wildlife and not being too strict on the tidying. Now, I've just stopped outside the shed because I've got big plans for this shed over winter, and it's been an absolute mess in there all summer long. And I know some of you have asked me for a tour in there before because it looked quite cute and I had my little setup. But things are going to change because it's not organised. I need proper storage, and it's not very practical. I want to be able to get in there, find my tools and get on with my job. So over winter it's going to have a big makeover inside, and watch this space because I'm quite excited about it. As well as the shed having a makeover, so will this area back here, because it's turned into a bit of a dumping ground, and I'm not afraid to show you my mess. But I've claimed this big cage pallet, which is going to be a perfect bin for storing leaves as they fall. I'll collect them in a few areas across my road and store them over here next to the compost bin, so that I can make leaf mould, which is a great addition to your compost mix or into your pots or for growing seeds in. But this area will be organised again also over winter. And one thing I have done this month is clear a huge patch here of wood from the clippings of last winter's hedge clearing. I've done with the big bits what I can, you know, like these branches back here. I'm just going to stack them up into the hedge, but lots of little bits I did actually have to burn because I've just got too much of it. Spinning around, and these dahlias are still going at it. Still lots of blooms, although they are starting to slow down a little bit, but fingers crossed there's no sign of the F word, the frosts, for a little while yet. So yeah, and I'm still thinking of mulching. I don't think I'm going to lift them. Maybe a couple I'll lift, but I think I'm just going to mulch this year. And looking at this side of the plot, obviously we know I don't have any carrots this year because I caught COVID and the seedlings dried out, so that was a bit of a fail. But the nasturtiums, look at them. It's become a bit of a weed on my allotment now. So when they inevitably reseed next spring, I'm going to have to pull out quite a lot of these. But look at this, my chrysanthemum. I bought these as two little bedding plants, not last year, the year before. I didn't even think it had come back, but this one gets bigger and bigger every year. Although this one is still quite small, but it's a huge, huge size. And I don't really have much red on the allotment, as some of you know. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's kind of like this burnt orange kind of colour. Yeah, great for autumn. And over here we've got my pumpkin patch, and I've got quite a few squash to harvest, but I'm going to save that for a separate video. I'll have lots of tips on how to do it, when you should do it, and yeah, loads of advice for you in a separate video on that. And this is where my garlic is going to be going as soon as I've cleared the squash. Garlic is ready for planting right now, and it's going to go right here. Down in the seating area, my ginkgo is starting to turn that gorgeous buttery yellow colour that I absolutely love. Oh, what a gorgeous tree. My little begonia still looking pretty cheery for October. And the bed that had all of my potatoes in and the courgettes needs a bit of a weed and a tidy. Oh yeah, I kind of gave up picking the courgettes, so they've turned into marrows. That big one will probably end up on the compost bin if I'm honest. And nasturtiums, as I said, just absolutely everywhere. That area back there has gone a bit brambly. Over the winter time, I have to go around the back of the tunnel and clear some of those brambles. I've actually got more beans to pick. I've been having quite a few of this over the last few weeks, and I've got quite a few that I've already dried. I'm sure I harvested some in the last video. But yeah, still lots of more of these Greek varieties. Let's have a look. Nice big white bean. Lovely. And also, actually, down here, I did sow a lot of beetroot in, oh, it's the summertime, I think it was July. And some of these are also ready for harvesting. Let's have a look at that one. That is a beautiful little beetroot. Just a nice little size for roasting, that one. Yeah, you should pick some of these. And over here we've got another little squash patch. I'm going to harvest all of those. The spinach is a monster, and those cosmos, as we said, are starting to go over. The dahlias, oh, I've got some chilli plants here that I've pulled out of the tunnel just earlier, ready to go in the compost bin. It's not been a great year for chilies. But the dahlias, they're still holding on over this side as well. Again, these will also be mulched. I'm going to risk it. Oh, there's a big bumblebee. Oh, he's gone now. But yes, remember not to lift your dahlias until you've had a good hard frost to knock them back. And I do have a separate video if you're starting to think about lifting your dahlias. I do have some tips and advice on that and how to store them. How's everybody's fig trees done this year? Do you remember mine sort of had a lot of frost damage in early spring? I had to cut it back. This was a little standard tree. And it's still alive, it's still growing. Obviously it's dropping its leaves now, but have you had much fruit from yours this year? I'd be interested to know. And as we go into the polytunnel, I've got a few little plants on my little propagation table. Oh, and a new purchase, I couldn't resist. Clematis Early Sensation, and we had this at work and I fell in love with it. It gets covered in white flowers that are scented very, very early in the season. So it's great for those early pollinators, the first bumblebees that start to come out of, you know, winter hibernation. I remember it, I'm sure it started to flower in sort of February, March. Oh, it says March, April, but you know, it's a really early flowering clematis, and it's also evergreen. So I'm going to find a spot for this, possibly on the trellis where the rose is. Because obviously the rose is deciduous, so I do always have a gap on one end with no foliage, you know, in the winter. But look at this chili. This is the only one that's still sort of going strong. And I just love the variegation. And all those chilies looks very rather Christmassy at the moment. My lime is doing really well. I've been feeding this and it's got lots of buds on. I can't wait for them to open. Citrus flowers are one of my favourite smelling flowers, as I discovered this year. And if you've got citrus plants, you want to make sure you switch the feed to a winter feed from now on. It'll help keep all the foliage nice and green, help keep it nice and healthy, and hopefully you'll still get fruit from it in the cooler months. And over here we've got lots of pansies. I can't remember if they were here last month, but I bought lots of little tiny seedling plugs. I've planted it into this bigger cell tray, and they'll remain in here until I plant my pots with my spring bulbs. I've got lots of tulips to plant, and these will go on the top as a little pot topper, and they will flower right throughout all of winter and into spring. Oh, I've got some really sad looking lettuce that are desperate for a drink. They'll soon perk up and they need planting out. But I don't really eat much salad in the winter, you know, like a whole bowl of it. So yeah, it was just a bit of an experiment. I'm not sure how well they'll do in here over winter, but I need to plant them, don't I? Whoops. In my wheelbarrow, I've got the last of the chilies that I harvested from those outside, and a couple of plants that I might actually try and keep in my cabinet at home where I've got grow lights. This one I think is the Scotch bonnet, and it's looking really crispy. It needs a water, but it should recover. Crossing my fingers. And another one there. In the back corner we've got my lemon, which doesn't have any fruits but lots of new foliage, which is why it's this funny colour. Again, it needs a bit of a winter feed just to keep it happy and try and keep those spider mites and scale bugs at bay. And the banana is also looking rather lush. Of course, it's got a few leaves that don't look the best because that's just nature. And my Cape gooseberry has got a few fruit on it. Hello. You've got to wait for the outside paper skin to turn brown and crinkly. Oh. And there we are. It's a rather glorious afternoon. I think we're approaching about 4 o'clock, which means we probably don't have too much more daylight available because it's getting dark so early now. Oh, I'm trying to not get caught on all these brambles up here because it's not very tidy. Lots of weeding to do, lots of prep before autumn, before winter. And lots more planting of bulbs and garlic and planning my winter projects. So it's quite an exciting time. But here we go. This is the top of the allotment at the end of October 2021. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. It may have been a shorter episode, but there's so much that I need to get on with. I'm going to harvest all those squash, maybe some of the beetroot and the beans, and it's just a really exciting time to be planning for spring, planting more bulbs, getting everything tidy, and planning winter projects as well. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, winter time and getting all wrapped up and having, you know, nice hot brews out here, watching the robins, and yeah, cracking on with some DIY. So, but you know, if there's anything that you want to see over the winter time that I can shoot for you, whether it's a Q&A or something entirely different, then please do let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.